unspoken. We can't heal if the wound is open. It feels like no one cares to see your heart is bleeding. The cry is ignored when you are there. When the wrong, the pain and lies are kept a secret. To gain for their own benefit. Be strong, be brave. You're too far away from the grave. Stand tall, we are here. We don't know the spirit of fear. We will overcome. Yes, we will overcome. We will overcome. Yes, we will. We will overcome. Yes, we will overcome. We will overcome. Yes, we will. Liberia, when will we stop being the inferior? Our vulnerable children stripped of their innocence. It feels like no one cares to see your heart is bleeding. The cry is ignored when you are ill. When the wrong, the pain and lies are kept a secret. To gain for their own benefit. Be strong, be brave. You're too far away from the grave. Stand tall, we are here. We don't know the spirit of fear. We will overcome. Yes, we will overcome. We will overcome. Yes, we will. We will overcome. Yes, we will overcome. We will overcome. Yes, we will. Liberia, we can't give up when they have turned their backs on us. Liberia, we can't give up. Liberia, we can't give up when they have turned their backs on us. Liberia, we can't give up. Young girls, don't cry. You're not alone in the fight.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, men and women. Welcome to Commander Galpohkpa Chesson Talk Show. Today is Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. We wake up to news that by tomorrow a snowstorm is headed to New England. Take heed and govern yourselves accordingly. Get ready for the winter driving. All you who have forgotten that during the winter You got to drive slow and be careful. Take heed and govern yourselves accordingly. Let's minimize the accidents. Let's minimize the strikes on our driver licenses. And let's take heed and govern ourselves accordingly. Snow tomorrow. Okay? Now, we also woke up to news that COVID-19 is on the rise, especially the Delta variant. We are also concerned about the Omicron variant, but up until now, there is no certainty as to the effect of the Omicron virus. So it is spreading throughout the United States. 18 states have reported cases of Omicron. So it's a concern. But we know that right now over 100,000 Americans are dying daily. It is basically from the Delta variant. So take heed and govern yourselves. Wear your mask. Make sure the vaccine. Many Americans have not vaccine. Tens of millions of Americans and their families have not vaccine. So we still have a lot of people out there walking around who may be carriers of the Delta variant, COVID-19. Take heed and govern yourselves accordingly. Okay? But we also know that the New York mayor, he ain't taking no joke. New York City is imposing a vaccine mandate on the private sector. Right now, the public sector, people that are working for the state and city, especially, are mandated to be vaccinated. So now the governor has come, the mayor has come out for New York City and stated the concern of both variants of COVID-19 and the need for New York, especially during this winter and with the traveling, and New York being the hub for most of the traveling around the East Coast and parts of America. He wants to make sure his city is safe. So, Mayor de Blasio is giving the private sector workers up until December 27th to get vaccine. So you got to get vaccinated. You got to get vaccinated by December 27th. Okay? And also by December 14th, everybody, all the young kids 5 to 11, got to show proof that they have had one of the two vaccines. So New York City is not playing. Traveling, before you travel, you got to have a negative showing that you have taken the vaccine and you're negative. People coming to America through New York have X number of days to vaccine and demonstrate a negative showing of COVID-19 before entering New York. So these are the restrictions coming up. This is serious. This is serious. And also to the people on Pearl Harbor, we take off our hats to you as you celebrate 80 years since the bombing, since patriots stood up to defend Pearl Harbor. This is the 80th anniversary. And I'm sure they're going to have a lot of military programs and maybe parade down there. But we remember you. Okay. So this is it for the international aspect of my news so far. Yep. So let's check out my local news, which has to do with the Republic of Liberia. My topics for the day are number one, traditional leaders owe their loyalty to government. Traditional leaders of Liberia owe their loyalty to government. Two, Liberian society is not dominated by cultural or social societal groups. Poro, Sande society, Masons, Eastern Stars, etc. Three, securing Liberia's constitutional democracy. Let's start with my first topic. Traditional leaders of Liberia owe their loyalty to government. If you read front page Africa newspapers report this morning, this is one of the headings that has to do with President Arthur Barclay behind me of Liberia, who was born in Barbados, the West Indies. You know, recently Barbados became separated from the British Empire and became a nation on its own. So recognizing this historical and significant link between Liberia and Barbados is outstanding. We know that, I mean, it's not strange. Throughout Liberia's history, West Indians have made significant contributions to the development, the freedom, the existence of Liberia, and not only Liberia, throughout West Africa. Edward Wilmer Blyden, who came from Jamaica, is our great spokesman for Africa. He was a great teacher, not only in Liberia, but throughout the British Empire. Wherever Edward Wilmer Blyden was in Monrovia, and he stirred up shit because he was a shit stirrer. He was a shit stirrer. He ran for president. He was with E.J. Roy. They started the True Party because of the mulattoes and their discrimination. Edward Wilmer Blyden wanted to marry a little Congo girl, light-skinned Congo girl, who carries work on the girls. And these Congo people got together and denied him. The mulattoes got together and denied him the right to marry that girl. They did the same thing to E.J. Roy and all these things. And you know, they will put the paper bag, the brown paper bag, like this color here behind me, by your face. If you're not that complexion, light skin complexion, you can't participate in the mulatto government. And that's what they did. And these were the children of the slave masters that returned to Liberia. People like J.J. Roberts and all of them were high life people. They were educated. They were the fortunate blacks that were educated. People that Edmund Blythe in them, they were the fortunate blacks who were trained by others who felt sympathy for black people, not only mulattoes. But the mulattoes had the upper hand because many of them were the children of the masters and they were the house niggas. So being in the house, they had the opportunity to eat well, to live well, to get educated. And that's why you see most of the light-skinned blacks were educated. The other blacks, Frederick Douglass, Wilma Blythe, all these people had to struggle to get educated. Some of them had to educate themselves. So we were blessed to have some of these people come to Liberia. You know, uh, Russell, the man that wrote the first black newspaper in America, Freedom's Journal. He graduated from Baldwin University in Maine. And he was one of those that repatriated to Liberia and started the Liberian Herald. There's a copy of that newspaper in the Providence library in the special session. Everybody can you got to ask for that special session when you go in the library. Ask for the librarian. When you see the librarian, tell the librarian you want to see the special session. You want to see the Liberian Herald, the newspaper for 1835, I think. That was the first edition that came out. And it's in a glass case. You can't take the picture. You can't, light can't touch it. Certain things can't touch it because they want to preserve it. It's so old. They don't want it to crumble and turn into dust. So they're preserving everything. No air can touch it because air and oxygen helps to cause rust and decay of stuff. So I went there and saw that newspaper. I was blown away. I read it, and this was the first newspaper by a black man in Liberia who wrote the first newspaper for black people in America as well. So we're gifted to have all these people returning home to Liberia. Now we have to understand that with the founding of Liberia, everybody were not Liberians. You know, we talk about our history, but we really don't understand when the Congo people say this is our country. We bought it. We bought it from the chiefs. We bought it. And the indigenous people were not part of the Liberian Society from 1847 until the early 1900s or late 1800s. The indigenous people of Liberia were not part of the mainstream Liberian society. It wasn't until Arthur Barkley, the man behind me from Barbados, that sought to unite Liberians. These were the people that started the amalgamation process, the unification process, and integration. He was one of those. So he fought for the unification of our indigenous people. And our indigenous people were made citizens of Liberia. So indigenous people were not part of Liberian society because we bought Liberia, us American Liberians, and Liberia was for us because we bought it from the chiefs. And we invited the people from Barbados, from West Indies, and all these people that shared similar culture with us from the Americas to come. So they will come and live with us and help to build this rich settlement that we have founded in Africa. That was a dream to compete with the white people and free our people through education, through the spread of Christianity and love. And this was why Liberia was founded. And we invited people with like culture from the West Indies, Jamaica, because all of us share the same culture. Slave trade started in the West Indies because the people brought the British and all the people brought slaves from Africa for the colonies in the West Indies to plant their sugar cane, to plant their molasses and everything they had to do there. So it then it sprang off into the mainland America. as people started bringing slaves and other blacks started visiting. They were everybody that came to America weren't slaves. Black people were indentured servants too. Black people came to America seeking freedom too and work. And they were never slaves of white people. Some of them owned indentured slaves too, until the Jim Crow laws and all these evil laws changed to prosecute all black people. But black people owned slaves, they were indentured servants. Some of them came from Africa free. Okay? And some of them were indentured servants because when they came, they had to pay the people back who brought them, who were their benefactors. So they worked for them. And they were not the slaves that picking, cutting, and all. No, they were just house house niggas. They were two house niggas too. You would term that as house niggas. But the cotton picking and all those field nigger aspect of slavery did not come until later on. Until the people saw what was happening in the West Indies and wanted to bring that same type of slavery into mainland America. So they got somebody from West Indies to come and teach the slavers here how to develop perpetual enslavement of black people. So that's part of our history. So Liberia, when we were founded, we wanted people to come with us that were like us. Because here we were in the midst of Africa, and the Africans didn't think we were part of them, despite the fact that they sold us. And some of us came back bitter and mean and wanted to revenge for what some of our people did to us. Because it was not far in between people taking slaves and taking them to America and us coming back to Liberia. Because if you read John Rosstrom's newspaper from 1835, the Liberian Herald, he states in there how discouraging it was for them to be coming to Africa as freedmen and settling along the Macerado coast and seeing the chiefs and indigenous people from up country bringing their own people as slaves to be sold on the coast to the Europeans to be taken back to America. John Rostrom wrote about it in his thing, and he wrote to people in America, pleading with them to stop slavery because it was hurtful to them. Here they were coming from America looking for a free land in Africa and sitting there watching the slave African people take slaves for the white people from the hinterland to the beaches of Monrovia to be taken to foreign lands where they were coming from. So it was better. So some of the people that were stopped when slavery was abolished in the mid 1800s by Lord Marshall of Britain, he abolished slavery. When he abolished slavery, all the ships that were taking slaves from Africa to Europe and Americas were stopped by the British fleets and redirected to Liberia. Many of them were redirected to Liberia. By that time, Sierra Leone was not yet a colony. So most of them came back to Liberia. And those were the recaptured slaves. And those were the people that sat in Liberia, and those were the Congo people, the real Congo people. But most of them were from Congo, from the Congo. So when they brought them into Liberia, the Bassa people and all the people in Monrovia wanted to make fun out of the American Liberians. So they call all of us Congo. They say, oh, look at the Congo people. So that's how all of us became Congo. And some of us accepted it. Say, okay, yeah, we're Congo. That made us more aligned with the rest of the Liberian culture and people. So when Barclay and other people in Liberia thought to make the indigenous populace of the area that is now Liberia citizens. They brought into the fold the other group of black people that made us whole. Now we have our brothers from the Americas mixing with our indigenous citizens from the soil. And what made it so great was it was a plan for all of us to unify and solidify ourselves as one nation and one people. And our indigenous people became a part of the Liberian society. And this is the division in our society still to today. So for us to progress and advance, for us to grow as a people and a nation, we must understand our history and set it into a correct perspective so that we do not hit each other, so that we understand our society is a society based on stepping stones. Our indigenous people, when you are indigenous, you are the last of Liberian society. When you are in our tribal society, you are the last within the Liberian society. Why? Because you have not connected to mainstream Liberian society. When you're in the center society, when you're in the bush society, like one of the people explained on one of our podcast presentations here, he said that in the Poro society, they got levels. There are 6 levels in the Poro society, our traditional society. Only the people with Western education can reach the 4th degree. Most of them do not pass the 4th degree because the 5th and the 6th degree are preserved for people who are real traditional people. Who are our real traditional people, never learned Western book, never been exposed to Western society. They are real traditional people from the bush. They get the highest order of the traditional society. But the Westerners, the Liberians who are Westernized and educated, they permit them to stop to the 4th level. So this is what I heard from that thing. Maybe it's mistaken, or maybe I misunderstood it, but this is what I understood from a brother on Costa's show explaining the 6 levels of our Poro society and Sande society. He says that there are 6 levels. The Grand Master and the Big Zoes are at the 6th level. All of us who are educated and speak Western tongue, we stop to the 4th level. That's the highest level for us. The 5th and 6th level are for the people who are totally traditional, never learn Western education, never learn nothing Western, stay in the bush and maintain that traditional setting. So this is it. So you see that even within our societies, they have divisions because they recognize that our society as a whole, the Liberian society, we have 2 societies. We have our traditional society and we have our Western society. Our traditional society is the foundation of Liberianhood because everybody in our culture lives within a traditional society. Everybody born in Liberia and go to school in Liberia, to our school. I'm not talking about those elites. I'm not talking about the elite who go to the special, who send their children away to school. But the Liberians who go to Liberian schools and learn the Liberian culture, all of us are born first in our culture, whether we Congo, whether we country, because people that Benin you they put they went into the Poro society. They went into the society in their time. Okay? People that me I never went into society. George Weah never went into society. He's indigenous. He never went into society. So we are still a part of the culture, but we are out of the entry level. Our poor society and all the things that are entry level societies. Then when you graduate from there, you come into mainstream Liberian society. That's why our indigenous people, they're not into politics. That one McGill were pissed off that they were coming into politics because they're not into politics. They are void of politics. They are into societal living. Okay? Because all of these devils belong to tribes. They don't belong to county, they belong to tribes. So if you bring in 14 devils together, are they representative of all the tribes in the county? Because one county does not own all the tribes. If they own the majority, that's different. Yes, they may have a bigger control, but we have 16 tribes, and we can't have 16 nations. So our tribes are loyal to government. They don't get involved with government. When you get educated and get promoted to mainstream Liberian society, then you are involved in politics. You are involved with government. You are involved with participation. But our indigenous people are directed in their voting. They are directed in everything they do. They are directed based on interests, based on local interests, local observations. So that's the difference. And when we understand our society, we know why we have two societies in Liberia. Because one is superior to another in terms of world and international relationship. Our indigenous society cannot relate to the Western world and Western society. That's why they are inferior to our other society, to our American Liberian society. So when you in and that's not no bad thing. Yes, we used to look down on in the future, in the past. That was a conflict. But as we evolve, as we grow, we gotta grow out of all those kind of idiosyncrasies because our societies are not different. It's just one relates better to the Western world than our indigenous society. So our peoples in our indigenous society are protected and guided by our educated society until they maintain their education. Then they move into the mainstream Liberian society where they are afforded the constitutional rights and dignities of all Liberian people. I'm not saying that they're not afforded those rights in our traditional setting. I'm just saying that our traditional settings are not appreciative and knowledgeable of our Western cultures and laws and societal living as they should. So that's why it's incumbent upon our educated people to protect our cultural society, to protect our blind people, until they become educated and enlightened. And that is why education is a must. If we must move out of the traditional society and bring our whole country into a wholesome, functioning society, we must raise the consciousness of our children. So we have a challenge. Do we stop their education to send them to bush school? Or do we incorporate aspects of bush school into our mainstream elementary education or primary education system so our people don't feel left out with their cultural education? So it's a balancing situation. We need to discuss this more into detail. But we have two societies, and one is inferior to the other because of our international relationship with the other African nations in the world. That's all. And that is why it's incumbent on our educated people, populace, to seek the interests and welfare of our traditional populace until they achieve the level of full citizenship, which means understanding and interacting in mainstream Liberian society. That's it. That's all. But it's we just have to put these things into perspective because there's no way we can change it. We always have a traditional society. We should be inferior to our westernized society in terms of our relationship with education, with foreigners, with money, we're developing our country, etc., 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 etc. So we have to understand these things. And instead of getting mad with each other, instead of putting each other down, no, we put it into a better perspective where we understand it's not about putting people down, but it's about setting our society up so we understand that our less fortunate brothers and sisters are that way only for a season. When they have elevated their minds and their skills and their daily understanding of hygiene, of sanitation, and all those things that make them part of a mainstream society, they come up to mainstream Liberian society and interact with it. And are afforded all the benefits and privileges of interacting in mainstream Liberian society. So let me take a coffee break and we'll move to my second topic. This is education 101, Liberian society. Okay? Let me take a break. I'll be right back. Now, the main components of confusion in Liberian society are our secret societies. Okay? Within the Liberian society, we have these secret groups that are called secret societies. Liberia society is not dominated by cultural or societal groups. Such groups are the Poro Society, the Sande Society for our indigenous people, the Masons, the Eastern Stars, the UPF, and all the other organizations for our educated people. You see how it works? The educated people can form things. The Poro Society and Sande Society are limited because our indigenous people do not have the ability to form things out of what has been traditionally set up for them from time immemorial. So we only have two societies. We only have the Poro society and the Sande society. And in the Western society, yes, we have the Masons, we have the Eastern Stars, but you also have the Grand, what do you call it? John Lodge, what do you call it? The different lodges of what other societal group called, man? You have the UBF, you have the not the Masons, the lodges, the other societal groups that are not Masons, that are branches of Masons. You have other groups. You have X. You have all these groups. This is the advantage of the educated people. All of us not Masons are not part of the Masons. The Masons only dominate in Liberia because that was the only organization that people gravitated to protect themselves against our indigenous groups. So just as the indigenous people had their Poro and Sende society, the educated people wanted their part of societies too. But it wasn't actually secret. They just maintained a secret because that was Liberia. It was a close-knit society. Anybody, before you bring somebody in your society, they wanted somebody else to vouch before they can bring them in. But we could form any society in Liberia. Boy Scouts could be a secret society too, where we don't permit other people in, except you live up to certain standards. Any civilized organization, and that's what differentiates educated people from our traditional people. We are not held to any specific ideals or principles. Our minds give us the ability to branch off, to say, oh man, we don't want this, we'll branch off. Look at it, even the church. We have the Catholic Church and we have the Protestant Church. Why? Because they protested. That's what they call it, the Protestant Church. So when you educated, you're not traditional. Our traditional people don't have the abilities to branch off from the Poro society and do their own thing. They can't do it. They wouldn't permit it because the Poro society and all of that linked to religious practices of the culture. That's why we gotta be careful with all these societal things because there are religious connotations in them. The devil is our African religious spiritual leader. So when you become a Christian, you have to understand how far you can go with the tradition thing and how where you have to stop because it goes beyond traditional. It goes into the spiritual, and when it goes into the spiritual, Christians cannot go that far. We stop to the physical. We can't go to the spiritual. The spiritual is for Jesus Christ. We have given our I want to Jesus Christ. So we can go and fight in the physical, wearing the clothes, singing the songs, doing all those things. But when it comes to rubbing the juju and drinking the juice and all that, we can't do that. We can't do that. Because that God is a God that is without. Jesus Christ is within. We can't put nothing within us when Jesus Christ is within us. So once we understand where our Christianity goes and where traditional practices go and stop with our religion, we understand how to live in our societies. Because if we don't understand the boundaries between religion and culture, we destroy ourselves. And this is what happened in Liberia and other African countries. Our African people do not know the distinction between culture and religion. And when you mix Christianity with any other thing, you can't get the blessing of Jesus Christ because he is a jealous God. Okay, let me take a break. That's my second topic. I hope this makes sense. We just have to understand that our society is not dominated by any culture, or our traditional society is different from our Liberian society. Our Liberian society is a combination of our traditional and Western society. But Western society dominates because Western society interacts with the world, with the outside world, with the foreigners and everything, with money, with different things, with crime. Our traditional society deals with the spiritual aspect of our people, and that what differentiates it. And because it's a spiritual religion, it's just as another religion as Christianity or Islam or anything. They're all placed on the same pedestal, you see. And as Christians who leading our nation, you gotta know how far you can go and where to stop. Simple religion 101. Let me take a break, then I start my final topic and get out of here. Okay? Liberia's constitutional democracy. It is a responsibility of every Liberian, all of us who our parents, our ancestors ratified the Constitution of Liberia, and all of us accept it as the law of the land. We have to know that we have a duty and responsibility to enforce our Constitution, to ensure that our Constitution survive, because through our Constitution, our system of constitutional democracy flourishes and grows. They go hand in hand. The Constitution provides us the atmospheres to practice our constitutional democratic system, our voting, our election, our ideal of governmental structure, all those things our Constitution enforces to us. And with our democracy comes our system of capitalism that gives us the ability to be all that we can be, to make all that we can make within the bounds of decency and law and order. So we have a great responsibility to protect our constitutional democracy, because through our constitutional democracy, all of us are guaranteed the right to pursue our own happiness as we see fit. We're a hindrance, we're all blackish, we're all greed of other people, trampling upon our rights. Because besides giving us the right to pursue our happiness, our system of democracy also provides the legal protection, the legal guidance through our courts and judiciary systems of governance. So we don't only provide happiness and the right to go forward, but we also provide the means to protect you against other people trying to infringe upon your rights and you infringing upon other people's rights. So we have a great responsibility as Liberian people. That's why we have to understand our society, the makeup of our society. While both of our societies are significant to us, our traditional society and our westernized society, they are significant to us. And we got to understand how to appreciate and treasure both of them so we don't step on any of them, but we allow both of them to flourish because they compensate each other. They grow with each other. They are linked to each other. So we have to understand our society. And once we set our society in a good perspective, it wouldn't matter which tribe we come from. It wouldn't matter which ethnic group we come from. We understand that above all of that, names, tribes, don't matter. It's who we are, what we believe in, what we stand for, what we honor and protect. Aluta! Continue. My class is done. Have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. In the cause of the people, the struggle continues.